So, what are some real world applications where AI, technology, and design collaboration have transformed workplace challenges?
We see it affecting everything in the world that I live in, which is around experience transformation and experience design. It's just for people like myself, it's just kind of an evolution of what's been happening for the past 20 years. Like
Yeah.
the thing that I like to remind people about here is everyone's, running around going like Gen AI, so new. I'm like, no. AI has been around for a long time.
I say that
You
as
know,
well. Yeah.
yeah, like Miss Pac-Man is AI. Like all of these non-player characters are AI. There's been sort of like generative AI and these new models are new, but they're an evolution of something that's been going on for a very long time. And I like to use the Miss Pac-Man example because if people think about that, what was the benefit of that? That interaction was a joyful experience. It was surprising. It was kind of delightful. It was fun. And I really sort of like worry that a lot of the way people sort of paint AI tools right now is it's an efficiency play. It's all about being faster and more efficient. Yes, there's awesome things that you can do to be more efficient, to create things a lot faster, to kind of like instantly leverage, generations of knowledge kind of at once. But don't sleep on the fact that this can be something that can create joy, that can create sort of like surprise and delight in the same way that, sort of like running around after those, or being chased by those purple or blue ghosts or whatever in Miss Pac-Man sort of gives you the same kind of feeling. So when I look at our world, we have been incorporating AI into a lot of things for a very long time, but where it's really exploding right now is in the actual creative process itself, right? So like we design things, in cloud-based design tools like Figma that have really revolutionized our industry, allowing people around the world to be in the same file on the same palette at once, all designing things at once and sharing assets in a way that you never have before. Whether it's the early ideation stage like you get with FigJam, or whether it's sort of like handing off assets between design and development, like if you look at Figma, I'll just keep going with this analogy, dev mode. And what's happening is AI is being introduced at every sort of level of tools like Figma to really speed up the transition or the translation of sort of like ideas that were created at one phase of a project into the next phase, right? It can automatically sort of translate a bunch of sketches into things that could be suggested first, sort of like design patterns, or it can sort of automatically suggest ways to kind of like tag some of these design patterns and to kind of create a more integrated design system. So how do we actually automatically pair some of these design ideas with code? And, how do we automatically assign tokens and things like this? This is getting a little technical, but basically speeding up and connecting all of these parts of the design and the creative and the development process in a way that I think is really pretty transformational, and not just for efficiency's sake, that actually I think allows creative people to explore more options and theoretically come up with better solutions. So there's that kind of stuff. And then there's the stuff that everybody is already talking about, which is just around sort of like automatic image generation, automatic content writing. And a lot of that I think is very interesting right now. It's probably best being used in places like where the writing isn't necessarily as creative, where what it is it's just like a huge labor. You can kind of think about like all of the product descriptions on every possible product in a giant marketplace like Amazon. Like, do you know what I'm saying? You actually don't need people to kind of write that the washcloth is like 9 inches by 7 inches by 12 inches. There's a way to kind of like auto generate all of those captions and things like that. And the actual image exploration itself. And so like that's transformational in the way that we're doing these things. But what I'm excited about is it's starting to move into things like project management and the way that we kind of interact with teams, and starting to suggest ways that we can be even more collaborative, and starting to suggest and kind of do a lot of the stuff that allows people who may be sitting around the world from each other, completely on different time zones, to still feel a little bit more closely connected, a little bit more like one team. So, I mean, that's the revolution that's kind of happening in our space. But it also creates, anytime there's change, I guess it sort of also creates concern, which I would argue is more reason to have some coaching tools about how to kind of be comfortable with this change that's happening right now. You know, if you think about what I've just described and how the world of design is changing, what it really illustrates is, especially for senior people like myself, like the world that we came up in, that we got really good at theoretically and allowed us to become very senior designers, is gone. It's gone. But I would argue the new world is not here yet. So we are sort of in what Peter Merholtz calls the liminal phase. We are in the in-between. And so the amount of anxiety around that when I talk to sort of fellow senior designers is pretty large. It's pretty substantial, because people are like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be excellent at anymore. And I'm afraid to admit that to anyone. There's a lot of that kind of going on.
Now, that's a great coaching question.
Yeah.
Go to Sherlock for fantastic use case.
It's exactly right. And so you need to be able to talk to someone, and you need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and you need to be sort of like steadfast and have a sense of direction for your team, even when the future is a little bit ambiguous, I guess is what I would say. And that is something that I think you kind of have to talk through, either with a professional coach, with your peers, or with some sort of like a coaching engine like what we're talking about here, or perhaps probably best of all three.